Back in my younger days, when I was still living with my roommates, I had what turned out to be the most obvious of dangerous encounters. I was looking to move, and I was about to leave to see a place in a perfect location. Good price, two seemingly professional male roommates. The last minute, my boyfriend suggested he goes along because the place is nearby, and we'll have to meet him at some point anyways. We get there, and I introduced myself, and one of the roommates seemed to be taken aback at the fact that I had someone with me. I suppose it could have been seen as something unusual to bring your boyfriend, but I figured, oh well, the damage has already been done. If they didn't allow me to be with the roommate simply because he's with me, I can't do anything about it now. Let's just see the place. The apartment is huge. We're both subtly impressed until we turn to the corner of the living room and we see it. A 2-camera setup with a light pointed at the couch. There's a guy sitting on the couch that is introduced as to the other roommate. He jumps off the couch and gives my boyfriend the same weird look. Now I realize that the look they were giving was disappointment. I shot my boyfriend a quick look of understanding, but we silently decided to continue with the tour, so as not to escalate the situation. I casually joked that it's nice to have a camera so I can videotape myself for my auditions. They both laughed much too hard to say, yes, that's what we're doing. He brings us over to my room, and it's literally a broom closet. You wouldn't be able to fit a single-sized bed in there. It's not potentially obvious that there's never a room for a rent in the first place. I take this opportunity to get out of there by saying, oh, that's too bad. I have a queen bed and I won't be able to fit. Okay, well, thanks for your time. We got out of the street, walked around the corner without saying a word. When we finally looked at each other, in this stunned silence, he just hugged me really tight, and we went for a walk in the park. This started happening exactly a year ago. I was living in another city, attending university my freshman year, and my then roommates were moving out due to them finishing their education. I needed to start looking for a new place, and I found 2 apartments, one in the center of the city and the other one nearby to where I was then located. Long story short, I moved into one of them, which was populated by 2 guys. One of them, we'll call him Matt. Matt had a great taste in music, had great friends, and was the best friend I ever met. One of these peoples that you really want to hang out for your whole life. The other one, Norris, well, I never got really along with him, mostly for him being the kind of guy that liked to follow others around. Like he had no backbone. Whatever Matt did, to Norris it was something like he needed to do, or backed up Matt. After a week of smoking weed, hanging out, and just having the best days of our lives, another guy moved in, Dan. Dan had a dog with him, but his dog left soon, because he destroyed some wooden door and it was either him or the dog. Matt had a girlfriend, Tina, that practically lived with us. You know, love and everything. Now, one day, Dan and I were sitting outside of our little terrace eating and drinking coffee, usual morning routine. And Tina came to sit with us. She had this large bruise mark on her shoulder, so we asked how did she got that. She said that Matt hit her, and we just brushed it off thinking she was just messing with us. A few days has passed. It was Tuesday night. I was in my room doing a seminar for a subject when I heard this loud bang like a bomb that went off my head. I got up from the chair all nervous, went to investigate, and on the other end of the hallway, I saw Matt's hand on Tina's throat and him saying some things to her in a very rough voice. Matt had a glass door, and while this was happening, there were no more glass on the door. They argued, she cried, and they both went into the night. The very next day, Tina told me and Dan that Matt used her head to break the glass from the door. The most insane part about this is that they kissed and made up after the incident. They literally love each other again after a shitstorm like that. She even made us a lunch as an apology. I honestly thought I was losing my mind. Of course, things didn't end from there. It was Friday, 3 days after the incident. That day I had planned to go on a Sleash Kennedy concert in another city, but due to the university and having to take an exam that day, I put my priorities straight. I sold the ticket and went to take the exam. Later that day, Matt, Tina, and Norris were going out. Me and Dan stayed in because Dan had no money and I felt the need to stay in. He was giggling the entire time, so I asked, was it the weed? He replied that it was the shrooms, so I decided to take some money and try them. We went to his friend's house, and I got my dose. We hung out for a bit, and then we returned back to our home. We were having a blast, like I can't describe the feeling. We were happy, and we didn't know what was to come next to us. At around 1 a.m., Matt bursted into the apartment and started packing some stuff. We assumed he and Tina had another fight. He was yelling at us to turn down the music. He really had a psycho look on his face. We went outside after him to see Tina sitting on a short brick wall across our house, in tears, with a bone coming out of her leg and blood coming out of her mouth. So yeah, he broke her leg and knocked out her tooth out. And that was all happening in the street while Norris was watching without doing shit to stop Matt on their way to the apartment. Me and Dan were out of our minds with what we just have witnessed. Being on shrooms and experiencing something so traumatizing was insane. We contemplated on calling the police, but both Tina and Matt disagreed. Matt and Norris took Tina to a cab and into a hospital. There, she lied that she fell on some stairs. Dan told me that M did stuff like this before to every girl he had. He was just very good at masking his wild side from everyone. Dan went home that morning and I stayed alone on the nut house. Just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard a girl's voice, and I really thought I lost it by this point, but when I woke up, Tina was there again. There. Her leg was taken care of in the hospital. She had a casket on it. I talked with Matt about it, and he told me the most craziest thing I have ever heard. Some people express their love that way, he being one of them. I talked with her for some time, trying to get her to leave and never come back, and to call the police. She packed her stuff, and we went outside, waiting for her friends to come back and pick her up. Matt stormed outside with a big knife in his hand. I cannot even express how his eyes looked. He told us if we mentioned this to anyone, he'll come after us and kill us. In that very moment, I knew that that man that I once knew, the greatest friend in the world, was gone. And I needed to get out of there as soon as possible. I left that day. I called every number on my phone, left all my things there, and I didn't care. My life was on the line. Settled at some friend's home and lived there for a while. University was ending and exams were coming, and I went home to clear my head. When I returned, I had a conversation with Tina, and she told me she called the cops on him. He was then awaiting trial. I don't know what happened since I lost contact with Tina, and I really don't want to remind her on the horrible things he did to her. Now, I know. Why didn't I engage him? I had a couple of chances, mostly because every fight they had, they would get together again like nothing ever happened. And due to the fact that Matt was a capoeira expert, while I was this guy that went to the gym rarely, and that Matt was really crazy and unpredictable. Since almost a year now, the end of August 2019 to be exact. I have moved to an apartment in a very different city because my mother, who I live with in my hometown, passed away from cancer. I have moved here with my long-term boyfriend and one other roommate. We absolutely love it here. The location is great. It's a 15-minute bike ride from my university, and it's located at a square with a grocery store, drugstore, lunchrooms, etc. So we pretty much have everything we could possibly need to survive within walking distance. However, after a month or two of living here, someone has started ringing on my doorbell at exactly 11:05 p.m. semi-regularly. Sometimes every day, sometimes every other day, sometimes there's a week in between, and sometimes there's a couple of weeks in between. But it's always around at 11:05 p.m., and every single time, I get no answer each time I ask through the intercom who it is. Except for one time, but I will get into that in a bit. At first, I thought it was one of our friends from one of our neighbors who accidentally rang the wrong doorbell. But after around the fourth time, I grew suspicious, and after one more than those 4 times, I started noticing that it was always happening at either exactly 11:05 p.m. or a few minutes earlier or later. My boyfriend and roommate both work at bars, and so they work very late into the night and would usually only get home at around 2 a.m. So each time it happened, I was always alone at home, and it started to really freak me out after a while. When I first told them about it, they kinda shrugged it off and said it was just probably a wrong dial, like I thought at first. But when I told them that this was happening so many times, and sometimes even daily, they didn't really believe me, and I thought I was just a little paranoid and spooked. However, one night, when the doorbell rang, and I answered the intercom asking who it was, I heard a very heavy breathing noise. I was thoroughly spooked at the moment. Again, I was home alone and kept asking who they were and what they wanted. I couldn't make up from the breathing if it was a man or woman, but I heard a strange mumbling/whispering voice, and it then was dead silent. And then they had appeared to have left. I had to put my apartment door on a double lock after that. I was so scared and spooked out. Thankfully, my roommate got home a little earlier that night, around 30 minutes after the doorbell rang, and he could tell how upset I was. So now with the coronavirus crisis going on, my roommate and boyfriend aren't able to work anymore, and they also now witness the frequent door ringing at 11:05 p.m. So they now do believe me and agree that it's very odd and creepy. We have a balcony that looks down at where apartment building's main floor is, but because there's also a shop right under beneath us that always has those curtain roof things out, the view to the door is partly obscured. Every time our doorbell rung, me, my boyfriend, and roommate will go to the balcony to see if we could see anyone. I also ask my neighbors from my apartment building if their doorbell also gets rang so often, but the ones that I ask all said that it never happened to them. So 2 weeks ago, my roommate decided to do some investigating and went outside to our apartment building at 11 p.m., standing across the street and pretended to have a smoke while keeping an eye on the door. He said he did see a man who looked kind of suspicious wandering around our apartment building, who slowed down his pace significantly as soon as he approached our door. But when he spotted my roommate looking at him, he quickly walked away. We aren't 100% sure if that was the door ringer, but that was very, very suspicious. Our doorbell hasn't been rung at night since that day, and I'm hoping that maybe it will stop now. But there's a very possibility that it will continue again in a few weeks.